Have you ever thanked the silence? Not just noticed it, not just enjoyed it, but actually whispered a thank you to the quietness that holds all your noise without judgment. That's what I mean by gratitude. Not the performative kind wrapped in affirmations and pastel notebooks. Not the kind that demands you to smile through the ache, but the kind of gratitude that arrives when everything else has failed. When your plans collapse, your willpower buckles, your logic loops back on itself, and all that's left is breath, a flickering pulse, a fragment of presence. The kind of gratitude that doesn't ask you to be better, but simply to be here. You see, we're often taught that gratitude is a response, a nice add-on, a virtue for people with good manners and good luck. But what if it isn't? What if gratitude is not a response, but a return, a way back, a way home? Most of the time, we don't realize we're sleepwalking. We wake up into anxiety before we even open our eyes. Our minds running through unfinished lists, unanswered messages, unhealed memories. We chase the day like it owes us something. Then collapse into night, still not sure what we were even looking for. And in that blur, we forget how to see. We forget how to feel a chair beneath us, how to notice the rhythm of our own breath, how to touch the present moment, not as a tool, not as a stepping stone, but as a whole and holy thing. This is where gratitude becomes sacred, not because it changes what's happening, but because it changes the dimension from which we see it. When you're grateful, not in theory, but in the trembling, now something inside you realigns. You remember the strange miracle of being, the odd gift of still existing. Despite it all, you realize you don't need to figure everything out right now. You don't need to fix your past or prove your worth or win some invisible war with yourself. You just need to bow. Try it next time you're in pain, not after. Not when things get better. Right in the middle of the mess, when you're exhausted, when your thoughts are tangled and your chest is tight and the future feels like a locked door. Just stop, gently, and thank the chair you're sitting on. Thank your lungs for still breathing, even when you're not okay. Thank the rain for falling, the traffic for moving, the silence for holding you. It will feel absurd. That's okay. Truth often does, because truth doesn't shout. It hums, and in that soft hum of gratitude, something ancient wakes up inside you. Not the ego, not the narrative, but the watcher, the one who sees without grasping, the one who feels without drowning, the one who for a moment doesn't need life to be different in order to be whole. This isn't spiritual bypassing. You're not denying your pain. You're not pretending everything is fine. You're simply choosing in this breath not to be consumed by the storm. You're remembering that there is a stillness beneath the waves, and gratitude is the rope that lowers you into it, not to escape, but to return to that place inside you that has never been broken. That doesn't depend on achievement or applause. That doesn't mistake thought for self. That doesn't ask for certainty, only presence. Gratitude is not a feeling. It's a shift in gravity, a realignment of attention, a slow, sacred decision to dwell not in what is missing, but in what is already here. And what's here? This table, this breath, this flicker of light, this ache in your chest that proves you're alive and still capable of feeling everything you've been taught to overlook is your path back to wholeness, but only if you can see it, only if you can say gently, honestly, thank you, not to impress some divine accountant, not to manifest outcomes, but because in that thank you, you step out of time, out of the mind's maze, out of the loop of fixing, and into a space where things don't need to change in order for healing to begin. You may ask, is that really enough? Just being thankful for a chair, for a breath, and I would ask you, what else do you have when the thoughts have failed, when the effort burns out, when the identity cracks? What remains? Presence and gratitude is what opens the door to it, not in theory, but in practice. So try it, not as a task, but as a return. A few seconds a day, a few whispered thanks, a few moments where you let life be exactly as it is, and still choose to bow. If that resonates, maybe you're ready to walk deeper into this quiet path. You're listening to Silent Sage Stories, where gratitude is not an emotion, but a practice of becoming whole. If that stirred something, perhaps you've already begun your return. Shall we continue? There's a strange kind of comfort in routine suffering, in waking up each morning with the same ache in your chest, the same tightness in your gut, the same voice whispering, something's wrong. We get used to it. We normalize the static. The hum of unease becomes background noise. And that's the danger. Not the pain itself, but the forgetting that there is another way to be. That wholeness is not some distant reward, but something quietly available here and now, underneath the clutter of our thoughts. And gratitude again is the key, but this time not as an idea, as an action. Let's begin not with belief, but with breath. Place your hand gently on your chest. Close your eyes. Don't try to fix anything. Don't chase some spiritual high. Just notice that you are breathing, and then quietly say, thank you. To what? That's not the point. Maybe to the breath itself. maybe to the cells working invisibly inside you, maybe to the silence that gave you this moment to pause, or maybe to the part of you that still believes in the possibility of peace. The words don't matter. The presence does, because each breath you notice is a moment reclaimed, a fragment of now, no longer lost to regret or projection. And in those fragments, healing begins. This is not a hack. This is not a gratitude practice for productivity. This is sacred reorientation, a way to stop identifying with your suffering, a way to interrupt the feedback loop that says, I hurt, therefore I am. I fear, therefore I must fight. Instead, you feel, you bow, you breathe, and you choose to stay with it without collapse, without judgment. That is strength, and it starts small. Try this tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before the flood of urgency swallows you whole. Sit 3 minutes. That's all. No affirmations, no goals, just presence. Bring your attention gently to your body. Thank your eyes for opening, your feet for touching the floor, your spine for holding you upright, even if you slept badly, even if your mind is restless. Say thank you, not because things are easy, but because you're still here to notice them. It will feel awkward. That's fine. It's not about the words. It's about the turning from absence to presence, from self-pity to soft praise, from control to communion. This kind of practice is not glamorous. You won't get likes for it. It won't make you feel instantly enlightened, but it will make you real again. It will bring you back into your skin. It will remind you that underneath the stories, underneath the striving, there is a being who wants nothing more than to belong to the moment, not to escape it, to belong to it. And gratitude is how that belonging begins. You don't need a list of 10 things to be thankful for. You don't need a gratitude journal, though it's fine if you keep one. You just need a few breaths each day where you let life be as it is and still say, thank you for this, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts, because that's when the practice matters most. Not when the sun is shining, but when you can't see it. Not when things go right, but when they unravel. Gratitude is not a reaction to goodness. It is the goodness. It is the force that says, even now, I will not harden. Even here, I will stay soft. Even this can be holy. And the more you practice, the more you begin to see differently. A chipped mug becomes sacred. The hum of the fridge becomes music. A sigh becomes a prayer. You begin to notice the quiet miracle of existence. Not because it's flashy, but because it's faithful. It keeps showing up, even when you don't. And over time, the distance between you and the present begins to shrink. You stop resisting the now. You start returning to it, again and again and again. This is the real gift. Not that gratitude changes your circumstances, but that it changes your posture from one of demand to one of devotion, from clenched fists to open hands, from grasping for more to realizing you are already immersed in grace. If you've forgotten that, it's okay. You can begin again, right here, right now, with one breath, one whispered thank you, one soft descent into this moment, as it is. If this story found you at the right time, maybe it's not just a story. Maybe it's a mirror, a quiet invitation. If it stirred something in you, let it ripple, like it. If it helped you breathe softer, share it. If someone you love might need the same reminder, and if you'd like to keep walking this gentle path together, subscribe, not for more content, but for more stillness in a world that rarely stops. You're listening to Silent Sage Stories, where your presence is always enough. There are moments in life when it feels impossible to say thank you. When someone betrays you, when everything you built crumbles, when the pain doesn't just visit, it stays. And in those moments, the very idea of gratitude can feel insulting. How can I be thankful for this? How can I look at my suffering and whisper, thank you, without feeling like I'm lying to myself? But maybe the question isn't how to be grateful for the pain. Maybe the question is, what does the pain reveal? That nothing else could. We spend so much time avoiding discomfort, distracting, numbing, blaming, resisting, and yet, it is often through discomfort that we see ourselves most clearly, that we touch something raw and honest, that we begin to shed the masks we didn't even know we were wearing. Pain is not the teacher we wanted, but it might be the one we needed, because it doesn't flatter us. It doesn't play nice. It strips. It confronts. It forces us to sit with what is real. And gratitude is how we make peace with that process. You don't have to be thankful for the betrayal. You don't have to glorify the loss or the abuse or the injustice. But you can be thankful for what it showed you, for how it cracked you open, for how it revealed where you were asleep, for how it made you soften or rage or finally speak your truth. The gratitude isn't for the wound. It's for what the wound awakened. There is a power that comes from not being a victim, not because the world treated you fairly, but because you chose somewhere, somehow not to stay small, not to become what hurt you, not to live your life in reaction to other people's shadows. And that power is rooted in gratitude, because it allows you to say, yes, this happened, and yes, I'm still choosing love. Not sentimentality, not denial, real love, the kind that burns away resentment, the kind that transforms pain into presence, the kind that does not need the world to apologize in order to be free. There is a story you've been telling yourself, about how things should have gone, about who should have stayed, about what you would have become, if only. And maybe that story has helped you survive. But at some point, it becomes a cage. And gratitude is the key. Because when you say thank you, even shakily, you're not erasing the past. You're releasing your grip on it. You're saying, I will not let this define me any longer. I won't let this moment be my prison. I will find the sacred in the shattered. Try this. Think of the most difficult thing you've lived through. And instead of analyzing it, ask, what did this show me about myself? What part of me broke open that needed to be seen? What wisdom came quietly after the storm? And if nothing comes, that's okay. The act of asking is enough. The willingness to look is already a kind of healing, because it shifts you from victim to witness, from collapse to curiosity, from helplessness to humility. And in that shift, a new kind of strength is born. Some people will never apologize. Some endings will never make sense. But that doesn't mean you have to carry them. Gratitude doesn't mean saying, it was all worth it. It means saying, I'm still here. I'm still open. I refuse to become bitter. That is the sacred defiance of the grateful heart. It doesn't ignore the darkness. It just refuses to be ruled by it. You may have scars, but the fact that they're scars and not wounds is already a testament to your healing. And you can be thankful for that, not because the pain was good, but because you are still good, still capable of tenderness, still willing to feel, still choosing to live, even when living hurts. That is holy. That is enough. That is the kind of gratitude that transforms. It's not a one-time epiphany. It's a practice, a choosing, over and over. Every time you feel the old story rising, every time you want to blame or shut down or disappear, you pause, you breathe, and you say, thank you for showing me where I need to return. That's all. That's enough. Because in the end, gratitude is not about labeling experiences as good or bad. It's about letting life shape you into someone more real, more raw, more awake. And isn't that what you came here for? Not to be untouched, but to be transformed. Not to win, but to witness. Not to escape, but to evolve. Gratitude, when fully felt, doesn't stay still. It moves. It flows. It wants to be given away. Not because someone told you to give, not because you're trying to be a good person, but because something inside you has softened so completely that it spills. You no longer ask, what do I get from this? You ask, how can I love better? Not louder, not grander, just better, with more presence, more tenderness, more sincerity. And that is the quiet revolution of real gratitude. When you truly thank someone, not just out of politeness, but from the marrow of your being, notice what happens. there's a warmth, a clarity, a subtle urge to do something in return. Not to repay a debt, but to affirm the beauty of the connection itself. This is how healing works, not by fixing everything inside us first, but by letting the gratitude we already feel ripple outward, into action, into service, into care. You don't need to be a monk. You don't need a platform or a plan. Start small. Write a note to someone who helped you once. Look your barista in the eye and say thank you, like you mean it. Take a breath before you respond to that message and offer softness instead of speed. Not to impress, not to perform, but because when gratitude lives in you, it changes how you live. And people feel that. The people around you, your family, your coworkers, your friends, they're not waiting for you to be perfect. They're waiting for your presence, for your warmth, for your ability to see what's good in them and name it. And if your heart is full of gratitude, that becomes easier. Because you're no longer chasing validation. You're no longer caught in competition. You're no longer holding score. You're simply giving from a place of fullness. Because that's what gratitude does. It fills the cup, and then it offers the overflow. You may not realize it, but someone out there is starving for kindness, and your quiet gesture, your word, your patience, your smile might be the only moment they feel seen all week. Is that dramatic? Maybe, but maybe not. You don't know the weight someone is carrying. You don't know the story playing behind their eyes. But if gratitude lives in you, you will approach them not with judgment, but with gentleness. And sometimes that's enough to change the trajectory of a soul, even if you never see the result. Gratitude doesn't need recognition. It doesn't need applause. It gives because that's what truth does. It flows. It heals. It extends itself simply because it can. And every time you let that energy move through you, through your words, your work, your presence, you become a conduit for something sacred. You turn the ordinary into ministry. You turn the mundane into blessing. You turn your life into an offering. But let's be honest, giving isn't always easy. Sometimes you're tired, disappointed, guarded, and that's okay. Gratitude doesn't demand you drain yourself. It doesn't ask for martyrdom. It only asks that you give from what you do have. If all you can offer today is one kind word, offer that. If all you can offer is your listening, offer that. If all you can offer is the breath that says, I see you, offer that. Because the smallest offerings, when rooted in gratitude, carry the greatest power. And here's the paradox. The more you give, the more you heal, the more you serve, the more you receive. Not always in material ways, but in the restoration of your own soul. Because nothing reconnects you to your humanity like caring for another being. And nothing reminds you that you are enough like giving from a place that knows it. Gratitude makes that possible because it doesn't wait for abundance to give. It gives, and in the giving, reveals abundance. So maybe the question isn't, what should I do with my life? Maybe the question is, what do I already have that someone else might need? And then share it. Your story, your lessons, your mistakes, your tenderness. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be true. Because what's true heals. And what heals lasts. This is the full circle of gratitude. It begins inside you, then moves through you, and then returns to you in ways you never expected. Not always as success, but as stillness. Not always as applause, but as alignment. Not always as riches, but as richness. A kind of richness that no market can measure. A kind of joy that doesn't need a reason. A kind of love that asks only to be shared. You've made it this far, through the silence, through the questions, through the soft ache of remembering something you didn't know you forgot. And maybe that's the point. Gratitude was never meant to be a goal. It was always a way back, not to some ideal version of yourself, but to the version that was quietly waiting underneath the noise. The one who never needed to be fixed, only found, only felt, only forgiven. The world will try to pull you outward. It will sell you stories of scarcity. It will reward the loud, the fast, the certain. But there is something sacred about walking in the opposite direction. Something holy in choosing stillness over speed, depth over distraction, presence over performance. That is what this path is. A soft rebellion, a quiet remembering, not of what you want, but of what you already are. Gratitude is not the destination, it's the ground, the soil, the root. When you return to it again and again, life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes possible. Your suffering becomes sacred. Your chaos becomes compost. Even your regrets begin to flower because you stopped fighting the moment. You started blessing it. It won't always feel poetic. Sometimes it will feel like sitting in the dark, whispering thank you through tears. Sometimes it will feel like starting over for the 100th time. Sometimes it will feel like nothing, but that's okay. The sacred isn't always loud. Most of the time, it's quiet, unassuming, like the breath you forgot you were breathing, like the chair that's always held your weight, like the moment you finally stop running from yourself and simply say, I'm here. Thank you. This is not a practice for the perfect. It's for the broken, the burnt out, the bruised, the ones who've tried everything else, the ones who secretly wonder if they're too late. You're not. You're never too late to come home. Not to a place, to a posture, to a way of seeing that turns the ordinary into miracle, the mundane into message, the ache into altar. So here you are, maybe still hurting, maybe still unsure, but you stayed, you listened, you breathed, and in doing so, You remembered. You don't need to earn your worth. You don't need to outrun your shadow. You don't need to become someone else. You just need to remember how to bow, how to notice, how to let life, in all its mess and mystery, be enough for now. That is the final teaching. Not that gratitude will fix your life, but that it will let you live it. Fully, softly, sacredly. Because when you can look at what is without armor, without agenda, and still say thank you, that is freedom. That is peace. That is the quiet revolution this world so desperately needs. And it begins in you. So take one more breath, place your hand over your heart, and whisper, if only to yourself, I'm here. I'm enough. Thank you. Then go live like it's true, because it is. If this story met you gently, if it held your hand through something unspoken, if it reminded you of the quiet power still living in your breath, then maybe it's worth sharing. Like it if your heart exhaled. Share it with someone who walks a similar ache. Subscribe if you'd like more stillness in your week. Not noise, not content, but presence. This is Silent Sage Stories, and you are already enough.